to my channel, and if you're new here then please subscribe. Please turn that bell notification on so you're notified every single time that I post, and thank you for clicking on my video and giving it a chance. So today we are doing another true crime video. I apologise, this was meant to come out yesterday on Monday, but it is coming to you on Tuesday. That is because there is a lot to this case, so that leads me on to my next point. If you see that I've kind of moved or anything like that, it's because I may need to stop halfway through and then continue to film, because it is such a long case. And again, if you see me looking over to the side here, I've got my notes just here, and sometimes I need to read from my notes just to make sure I get information correct. So I just want to give a quick disclaimer. Today we are talking about true crime. I mean, no disrespect to anybody that I talk about in the video or anybody who's been affected by this crime. If I pronounce anything wrong or I miss out any details, please let me know politely in the comments below. Today we are talking about Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose Blancharde. Claudine Blancharde was born on the 3rd of May in 1967 in Louisiana. Claudine was known as and preferred to be known as Dee Dee. That is how I'll be referring to her throughout this video. Dee Dee had a normal upbringing. She had 5 brothers and sisters. Her childhood was very normal. In her teenage and early adult life, Dee Dee did get in trouble with the police a few times for petty theft. But eventually she grew out of that rebellious stage and eventually got a job as a nurse's aide. When Dee Dee was 24, she found out she was expecting her first child, and the father of this child was Rod Blancharde, and he was only 17 at the time. Dee Dee and Rod did get married, and in 1991 they welcomed their daughter Gypsy Rose. When Gypsy turned 3 months old, Dee Dee believed that Gypsy had sleep apnea. Obviously she kept taking her daughter to the hospital, but after many tests, the possibility of Gypsy having sleep apnea was ruled out. But despite the doctors saying this, Dee Dee was adamant that Gypsy had sleep apnea, and she also believed that that was a symptom of a chromosome disorder. When Gypsy was 7 years old, she had an accident where she fell off her granddad's motorbike and she had a small cut to her knee. Dee Dee assumed from the cut that it was clear that Gypsy needed several surgeries from this accident. And from this moment on, Gypsy was confined to a wheelchair. Gypsy stopped attending school in 2nd grade, and it is believed that her mum continued to homeschool her. And after a lot of issues with Dee Dee's family, they decided to move to Sardell. In Sardell, Gypsy and Dee Dee lived in public housing. They received disability benefits for Gypsy's medical ailments. This helped Dee Dee get Gypsy everything she needed, and also helped her to pay the rent and keep the roof over their heads. They spent most of their time going backwards and forwards to the hospital for treatment for the illnesses that Dee Dee claimed Gypsy had. Dee Dee believed that Gypsy was in fact starting to lose her vision and her hearing. She was also certain that Gypsy had muscular dystrophy, but no matter how many tests that the hospital did to prove that she didn't, Dee Dee was still adamant that that's what her daughter had. And also, during all these trips to the hospital, several surgeries were performed on Gypsy. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the area that Dee Dee and Gypsy were living in, and this meant their home was destroyed, so she had nowhere suitable for her and her disabled daughter to live. Doctors advised that they move to Missouri, and when they moved there, they was in sheltered accommodation. And during their time in Missouri, Gypsy was presented with Child of the Year in 2007 by the Ollie Foundation, and the Ollie Foundation is a charity set up by advocates of children with feeding tubes. In 2008, Habits for Humanity built Dee Dee and Gypsy a home with a ramp and a hot tub. It was literally the perfect home for them, and they were so lucky that everybody was able to come together and do that for them, and they soon moved in. Dee Dee's story made media attention. A lot of people had a lot of sympathy for this woman who was a single mum. She had a severely disabled daughter and was doing everything she could for her child. They had so much help from charities. For example, Make-A-Wish Foundation, they got free trips to Disneyland, and they also got places to stay for free when they were visiting other states for Gypsy's hospital treatment. Rod was still involved in Gypsy's life, but he wasn't there all the time. He would contact her over the telephone and occasionally see her to catch up. He also sent Dee Dee monthly instalments of child support allowance. Everyone who met Gypsy absolutely loved her smile, loved her energy and loved her personality. But when all the ailments started to stack up, doctors were starting to become very suspicious of Dee Dee. When doctors would question Dee Dee about this, she stated that she lost all the medical records in the hurricane. It seemed one of the doctors decided to report Dee Dee. 2 professionals were sent over to the family home to do a wellbeing check and see if everything was okay within the home. And when they arrived, they claimed that everything was okay, and also Dee Dee also persuaded them that everything was okay. Rod had also started to pick up on something very unusual. When he called Gypsy on her 18th birthday, Dee Dee said to him, "Do not mention how old Gypsy is to Gypsy, as she still believes she is 14. Weirdly, Dee Dee continued to lie about Gypsy's age. She even went to the extremes of changing her birth certificate. Obviously this was very hard for Dee Dee to keep up, as Gypsy obviously got older. People around Dee Dee believed that Gypsy was a child right up until early 2010, but in fact Gypsy was an adult. Gypsy was aware of what her mother was doing and started to rebel. She just wanted to get away, so she decided to use online chat rooms and forums, and this was her sense of freedom. In 2011 she attended a science fiction convention, and this is where she met a man that she proceeded to run away with. After asking some mutual friends, Dee Dee later found them in a hotel room together and took Dee Dee back home. Now, according to Gypsy, her mother was very violent this night and physically abused her and smashed up her computer and hit her because she was so angry over what Gypsy had done. In 2012, Gypsy continued to secretly use the internet without her mother's knowledge. She would wait till her mum was asleep or wait till her mum was out of the house so then she could go online. And it was online where she met Nicholas Gordjon. They met in a Christian Facebook group, and Nicholas had issues of his own. He was suffering with mental health and he possibly had autism. He had also been arrested in the past for indecent exposure, but none of this put Gypsy off. In 2014, Gypsy confided in one of her friends about the relationship that she was having online. She told her friend about the sexual things that they would talk about and things they would want to do to each other, and her friend obviously got extremely worried because she believed that Gypsy was not her real age and was actually a child, so she was worried that this disabled young girl was having advantage taken of her, but she didn't say anything. She wanted Gypsy to trust her, so that's why she didn't say anything. She just saved all information and printed them out. Gypsy wanted Nicholas to meet her mother, but she didn't want her mother knowing that she'd met Nicholas online, so she came up with a plan so that Nicholas could meet her mother. She arranged for Nicholas to come to Springfield, and then they would magically bump into each other outside the movie theatre. And on the day that they first met, they had sex, but Gypsy said she didn't have the same feelings towards Nicholas as she did have when talking to him online. Gypsy and Nicholas continued to talk and have a relationship online. Soon the relationship would take a turn for the worst. Nicholas and Gypsy had started to plan on how Nicholas was going to kill her mother. On the 14th of June 2015, status updates were posted to Dee Dee's Facebook account. These status updates were really out of character, and the first one being, "That bitch is dead." Friends of Dee Dee assumed that she'd been hacked, but as soon as more statuses continued to come, they got extremely worried. They tried to call her, and when there was no answer, a couple of their friends went round to the house just to check up on Dee Dee and Gypsy. When they arrived there, Dee Dee's modified car that was modified for Gypsy's wheelchair was still in the drive, so this meant they hadn't have gone out, because if they was to ever go out, they would use that wheelchair. The car still being there definitely made everybody's worries worse. There was still no answer at the door, so Dee Dee's friends decided to call 911. When the police arrived, they advised that they couldn't enter the property without a search warrant. But one of Dee Dee's neighbours decided to enter through an open window anyway, and when he entered, he noticed that all three of Gypsy's wheelchairs were still there. And obviously Gypsy could not go anywhere without these wheelchairs because she couldn't walk. When police finally got their search warrant, they entered the property, and upon searching the property they found Dee Dee's dead body in her bedroom. This news shocked the community, and everybody was instantly worried for Gypsy. She had no wheelchair, she had no medication, she was fed through a tube, and she was missing. And because of all this, the community really feared the worst for Gypsy. The friend that Gypsy had spoken to about her relationship with Nicholas approached police and showed them what she knew. She knew that Gypsy was in a secret relationship, and she thought it may be credible towards the case. Police decided to track the IP address of the Facebook post, and magically they were posted from Wisconsin, and they knew that Nicholas was from Wisconsin. Police in Nicholas's area decided to raid his property, and this is where Nicholas and Gypsy were found, and then they were both arrested on suspicion of murder. At first, the community was overjoyed with the news that Gypsy was found. Obviously, they didn't know the details of Gypsy being arrested, they just heard that she'd been found. So everybody was really happy. And what they were to hear next would change absolutely everything. Gypsy hadn't had any medical conditions. She didn't have any medical conditions as a child. She was a perfectly normal adult. Her mother was in fact suffering with mental health, and she put this onto her child. She created medical conditions to manipulate and control her child. She would also physically beat and be violent towards Gypsy. She also forced Gypsy to go through surgeries and treatments that she just didn't need. This is seriously one of the worst forms of child abuse. And in revenge for this, Gypsy arranged for her boyfriend to kill her mother. But this wasn't just a case of murder. This was now a case of murder, a case of fraud, and also a case of child abuse. On the night of Dee Dee's murder, once Dee Dee was asleep, Nicholas came over to Gypsy's house. She then let him in. She gave him a knife, duct tape and gloves, and ordered him to kill Dee Dee. Nicholas then went and stabbed Dee Dee multiple times while she was asleep. They then had sex in Gypsy's bedroom, and then stole £4,000 off Dee Dee and ran away together. Several days after the murder, on the 14th of June, this is when the Facebook posts were posted, and the pair did this so that Dee Dee's body wouldn't go undiscovered. In July 2016, the trial for Dee Dee's murder had started. The physical abuse, the mental abuse against Gypsy was highly talked about in this case. And people did start to turn from rage to sympathy towards Gypsy. It was as if she couldn't do anything apart from kill her mother to get away from this torture. In Missouri, if someone is charged with first-degree murder, they can also be charged with the death penalty, and the court didn't believe that this was right for Gypsy, considering everything that she'd been through. So they came up with a plea deal for second-degree murder. Nicholas Gorgon was charged with first-degree murder and he was sentenced to life in prison. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was charged with second-degree murder and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. I believe that she is trying to get an early release at the moment. There has been a lot in the newspapers about this, and she has a lot of supporters who are signing it. The petition was set up by her father Rod, who believes she has spent enough time in jail for what she did and believes that she is no longer a threat or a harm to any of the public. I don't know what to make of this case. Usually when you're talking about a case, you can kind of be quite certain what side you're on in your own mind. I tend to keep that away from my videos because I'm just simply talking about the knowledge. I'm not trying to push my opinion on anyone. But this one, I definitely don't know what to think, so I'd be so grateful if you could let me know your opinions. Please be nice to everybody in the comments, as you always are, but let me know whether you think she should have got life for what she did or whether her mother deserved this. What do you think? So that is all for today's video. I apologise that the lighting has got increasingly worse. 1, I don't know where to work lighting, and 2, it has gotten dark. So that is everything. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Please subscribe and also turn on that bell. And I shall see you in my next video. Bye.